Hello, Biblionauts. I am Grix, and welcome to this sanctuary of idiocy, the parade of my ignorance. Today, we have to talk about annotation, and annotate you must. MJ, this is a response. MJ made a video, a really nice, open ended video about annotating in books. Is it evil? Is it not? Let's find out. um, she was basically talking about how good it felt to have annotated on a book, but she seems to have a hierarchy when it comes to it. She won't annotate in any book. It has to be on books that she does not value very highly. For me, it's pretty much the opposite of that. I will annotate more the more I like a book, and I will like the book the more I annotate in it. It's reciprocal and proportional. And that video was nice, but then Greg, the infamous Greg, at Another Bibliophile Reads, made a video against annotating, a very, 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 very confrontative video when it comes to annotations. He hates annotating. He does not want to see anyone's poo on his forest, and of course I had to respond because I poo in every single forest that I visit. I always annotate, even in the books that I don't love. There's always some trace left behind, and it's not for some sort of loose desire of perpetuity. I'm not trying to be, hey, I was here. I'm not just signing behind every book I read. I enjoy interacting with books, and I have a bunch of not a bunch, but some reasons here of why annotating is amazing and why you should try it, and why I do it, and also some acclarations about what Greg said on his video specifically. Starting with the main problem that he had, and that is totally plausible, and that's, I'm gonna address it before anything else, which is, if you buy a book and annotate in it, and then are going to resell that book, if you resell the book, resell it informing the buyer that you have annotated and showing them the kind of annotations that you have made. Every time I resell books, I either resell them to individuals that can hold them in their hands and see the book at university mainly, or I go to, with a bunch of books, to a second-hand bookstore, show them to the guys, and they will exchange those books for other books, and they will see the annotations. Because when I annotate on a book, it's not something that you can just like miss. It's right there. You can see that, it's very annotated. And of course, most of the times I get less value for the book, but that's it. The critique against people who sells books that are annotated without not having communicated that fact to you is not a critique on annotation, it's a critique on lying. I agree. You should not lie. You should not lie about this, and you should not lie about most things. But it does not, so far, annotating remains untouched. That does not affect the action of annotating. It only affects the action of lying and then selling a book, telling someone that that the book is impolluted, and then it happens to be pretty much polluted. So that left aside, let's go to the reasons of why would you annotate, why annotate, and the value behind annotating in general. And number one is that annotation is a very fun, very interesting, or it can be at least, three-way interaction with a book. Sometimes I look forward to find annotations on second-hand books. Sometimes I go out of my way to find a book that I like and that I have already read on its annotated version in order to get feedback. Some books lack footnotes. Footnotes are nothing else than official conventional annotations. You sometimes want footnotes on a book, and sometimes I want annotations. I want some views or commentaries on the book that are off the beaten path. When I read The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, I read the annotations that Napoleon had made on that book as he was reading it. That was very interesting. But also imagine that, I don't know, imagine someone in BookTube died and they left as part of their they left all their books to BookTube, and now we all get together in this person's house and remember them and take some of their books with us. I bet you would prefer to take a book from this person that is fully annotated, that is full of their annotations, because you would be taking part of that person with you. So that's kind of like my reason number one. Then following from that, because our AC refutation to that is that, yeah, but that's because you know them. But what about when you don't know them? Well, I'm a social person, but I don't like people. I'm very, very social, but I do not like people. Those are two different things. 90% of my conversations, I would erase them. Like I have to have them. You know, I'm on the train station or someone goes to me at university and I have to speak to people. But most of the times I do not enjoy what people has to say. I don't find anything of interest. Reading is like people who read books are a really good filter of who gets to you and manages to tell you what. Because if someone comes to me on the street and they are talking about like the weather or anything really, I'm not, or even they are talking about a book but they have not really read the book, I feel like it's a waste of my time. When someone has read a book that I am reading and then they have annotated on the sides on that book, even if it's not about the book, as you will see, I'm going to show you some examples of my annotations, and some of them have nothing to do with the book, but they are still on the book. It's much more likely that I will want to hear what they have to say, to read what they wrote, because one, they read, and two, they are reading or they have read the same book I chose to read. So, and I don't think this is something that anyone in BookTube will disagree with. That increases the likelihood of you being interested in that person, because I mean, you know, this is the first rule of Fight Club is that you don't speak about Fight Club, right? But when you walk on the street, you can tell when someone reads. You often can. We are a rare species. It's hard to come across us, and it's hard for us to interact with non-readers in certain cases, and it's hard for us to not have the conversation that we would like to be having with people that we have around. So it's a really for me, annotations are an amazing way to get. To start a conversation, and they can also be helpful if you're reading a difficult book. It's not the case with the read-along that I'm doing now, because this is a known book. But sometimes I'm reading difficult books, especially on the realm of philosophy or nonfiction, and they are a bit more rare. I will not find enough secondary material or people talking about it or something to support my understanding of the book. But I can go to the library and find a book that someone completely disrespected, and that is an edition of that same book that I am reading, that is rare and that doesn't have much in the way of information about it. And I will find some older third year that read it, or some master's student or something that read it a long time ago and wrote on the sides, and no one found out that they wrote on the sides. And then I'll go there and I'll be like, okay, so that means that, so that book is good for, okay. Yeah, that's another, there's also an instrumental value to annotating. So there you go, that's another reason. Well, a bunch of reasons are actually, I just overwhelmed you with reasons right now. Greg, I think you should change your mind about annotating by this point, but still, we're halfway there. Let's see what else have I wrote here, written. Yeah, of course. This is not true for underlining, but it's true for annotating. Annotating makes a book unique. And I also don't think you will disagree with that. Of course, you can say that uniqueness can be, you can poo a unique shit and no one will want to eat it. But it is something to keep in mind. If you have read a bunch of versions of the same book, if you have reread a book a million times, maybe another way to approach the book differently is to read it with someone else's annotations, to read a second-hand version of that book from someone who has also reread that book and has thoughts that maybe had not come into the mainstream um, medium of literary material. So there you go. That's unique doesn't mean good, but it's true that annotating can make a book unique. And now probably the most important and last. Wait, I skip one. Annotating will not only make you enjoy more a book, but by that increased enjoyment and increased active thought about the book, you will remember and understand more about the book as well. And that is scientifically proven. I'm not gonna go to the PubMed now and look for the exact studies that prove it, but I think it's common knowledge by now. If you take a book and interact with it, both, this is also a way of remembering books, booktube. You know, like you talk about a book, you will remember it more. You write on the book, you reflect on the sentences, you interact with it in whatever way you want. Even if it's, you know, again, writing an anecdote about where you were reading the book. Those things will make you remember the book more. And we want to remember the books that we read because it's not that oblivion, it means a waste of time. Like the fact that you forget a book doesn't mean that you wasted your time reading it. If you enjoyed it, you enjoyed it. But if you remember it, you get to enjoy it throughout your life. So that is a strong point towards annotating books for your own sake. Now, the main analogy. Greg does not want to go into the forest and find someone else's poo. He's very much a fan of leave no trace, the leave no trace philosophy. But I would say, to respond to this, I'm going to give you some examples, but I would say that there is ways and ways to poo in the forest. And anyone who has been in the forest for long enough, you know I have, you will know that at some point you will have to poo. If you stay in a forest for long enough, you will want to poo. So what kind of trace you leave is much more important than whether or not you leave trace. It's not about not leaving trace, it's about leaving the right kind of trace. If I stay for 3 months in the, in the Ancares in Spain, doing the bear route in which you're sort of like looking for prayers and everything, I'm sleeping there on the same place. Maybe I'll build a small wooden platform on top of a tree so that I can stay there and sort of like see everything without being seen and maybe be safer at night and warmer. If a hiker comes by 3 months after and sees that platform, it might be helpful for them. Now, you don't want to see me throwing bottles of plastic, and if I do poo, you want to dig a hole and leave it buried, right? I don't want to see flying toilet paper as I'm hiking in a place in which I'm precisely trying to escape from humans. So yeah, I mean, there is kinds and kinds of traces, and let's see some of those traces. And this is not to say that I don't leave bad traces in books, but of course, I would, if I were to get rid of these books, I would inform the next owner of this fact, or I would perhaps not get rid of them at all. For example, here I was very confused in House of Leaves, and I just wrote a bunch of question marks. I just wrote a bunch of question marks. Unhelpful, just no purpose to it other than I don't understand what the fuck is going on there. Perhaps next person who reads it will be like, I do, and they will answer those question marks. So be like, why do you do that? Just like you would be in real life. I'm like, what do you mean? Someone would be like, this is what I mean. So even that, which is kind of like an useless way of writing on a book, can be interactive and can point at the attention towards something that might highlight or promote further thought about the sentence paragraph. I've lost my train of thought there. Okay, so yeah, let's look at, so another thing is that you do want to have a certain methodology when it comes to annotating, and someday, at some point, I will I will talk about my annotating philosophy or methodology or whatever. But to begin with, this is a autobiography anthology from the Follow Society. It's wonderful, it's amazing, I love it. And it's heavily not only annotated but underlined. I only underlined in two ways here. So I underline the parts that I like. I put quotation marks. I don't know if you can see maybe here. I didn't. Yeah, another thing is that I because I am not reading this cover to cover, but I am jumping in and out. I put a circle around the extras that I have already read, and a line about like that over those that I don't want to reread. So this is like from Nina Berberova, and not only have I read it, but I have liked it so much that if I were to open the book again, I would want to reread it. Also in the index at the beginning of the book, I write the page numbers that I have liked the most, and I put the like some quick summary, some word or sentence keyword that will remind me of why that page number is written over there. Also, anytime there is a book recommendation, I put the book like that, so they know that there is a reference. Also, if there is a book recommendation of a book that I have already read, and I write a book, and I also put horizontal lines on it so that I know there is a book I have read that is being talked about. And then here you have the quotations marks. Whenever some writer or whenever anywhere in the book there is a sentence that stands out to me, that feels like very quotable, I put quotation marks on the sides. Here I wrote, I put quotation marks to this quote: "How far can I hope to give a true account of an animal I know only from the inside?" Referring to herself. So that's just to show you a little bit of the methodology. There is a lot there that could be maybe on the way of another reader's own methodology, but also it could be elucidating. It could be helpful in order for them to get quicker at the things that a previous reader found interesting. When you read on a Kindle, sometimes a paragraph will appear and will say, "This has been highlighted by 55 people." You will pay more attention when that shows up, because if 55 people who read it before highlighted it, maybe you will too. Of course, there is other good and bad ways of annotating. Here we have, I'll show you one good and one bad if I can find. This is The Average Surfer's Guide by Simon Sort. It's my favorite book about surfing, and I highly recommend. This is a book itself essential. I don't know why haven't I think the reason why I didn't do the book self essential for this yet, the video, is because I want to wait until I am surfing, and I'll make the video with my wetsuit on and the board behind. Yeah, that's the only reason why I haven't done this one yet. Let's see. Yeah, so I wanted to show you. Yeah, this somewhere further here, and he said something and I wrote, "This is bullshit," which might not be a very helpful. This might be proof on the forest. It might be something that you would not want to find on your reading of the book. But then somewhere else in the page 32, he says, "We live in a world where success is derived from careers and work. When meeting new people, one of the most common questions is, 'What do you do?' It is often asked within the first 10 minutes of meeting someone. It seems to be such a defining question. But what people are really asking is, what is your social status? How successful, in relation to money, are you? How much money do you make?' I would love this question to be replaced by, what do you do for fun? What do you do to make you feel like a kid again?" And on the side, I wrote my answer. I wrote, I dance, I surf, I climb, I dive, I travel, I watch films with friends, I play games or get in cold water. I try not to be too lonely. I spend time with dogs and other animals and study the crazy geometries of the world. And sometimes I cry. Now, that is a completely self-referential note. There is not much in there for about the book. It's just an answer to that question. But I bet if you were reading this and you read that and you were interested in this book in the first place, you would probably relate. It's also good. I mean, who wouldn't relate to something like that? So if I were reading this book and I found that someone answered that,